Hello, it's me, Kyle. Welcome to Give Pause Hobby, the channel where I stop to appreciate the things I love to fill my free time with. And today, we're returning to the quick piloting episode for more root content. Woohoo! So last time I put one of these out was the long-awaited return, at least for me. I can't speak for you, but I've been waiting to get back to this video series for a long time, but I wanted more hands-on experience with the Clockwork 2 factions before I went through this, just to make sure there wasn't stuff that I learned. For instance, the logical lizards and their acolytes. Do you or don't you spend them even if they don't do anything? Hint, maybe yes. So we're back to the Riverfolk of the second and final Riverfolk Clockwork faction with the Riverfolk robots. So again, this is going to be me going through one turn, just verbally walking you through my thought process as someone who is piloting the Clockwork faction. I'm not going to go super deep into the rules of each one of these steps. If you want that, up here in the corners is a link to the Big Brother episode where I go into probably ad nauseum detail on all the different things that make this faction tick. I'm probably not going to go super deep into services here either, because again, that's in the big video. Also, if you'd like to hear me talk about this faction in action, here's the link to, this is one of the 4 factions that was part of the RootBot Madness 2023. Unfortunately, the video failed because the live feed didn't work, and this is me just kind of regaling you how the game went. It was super fun, and hope to record it again sometime because I really want to show off how these different factions work. I don't know if they'll be as engaging as they were that game because it was a lot of fun. But anyways, Riverfolk robots, we're going from the logical lizards have an impact on the game, but running their turns is pretty easy. The conspiracies can get a little bit convoluted in terms of what you can do, who your targets are. The Riverfolk robots are not heading towards simpler. With that, when we get to the underworld factions, those get a little bit easier. This one's a little bit more complex, namely because with your basic and advanced services, if you choose to use that, those are going to be outside of your turn. On any player's turn, whether Meatbag or RootBot, they are going to be checking your market for cards to buy, maybe using the use of the riverboats, or using your otters as mercenaries. So those are things that are going to be kind of adding to the mental bandwidth of the game outside of the turn. It's honestly not that bad. I've found if you just put some sort of reminder right by the faction cards, even if you have this bot and you have, say, 3 humans around the table, you're just like, you know what, we like it when there's a market we can buy from. Great. I would take the advanced services card intended for the RootBots so they can interact with this faction. I would just tuck that card in right by Birdsong on each of the Meatbag players' boards. They don't need it, but just the picture of the Clockwork version of their faction with like the Riverfolk like background might be enough to jog their memory and say, oh yeah, there's, RootBots are in here. And I would definitely put the advanced services right next to any RootBot factions that you're using right by Birdsong, so you don't forget that. But anyways, let's get into it. Here's my thought process playing the Riverfolk robots. So as always, you're first going to want to make sure you're paying attention to your berries. Poor manual dexterity, hate surprises, and market. So none of these are big surprises for fans of the show because the first 2 are the same everyone has, and the market is pretty much the same as the Meatbag version of the otters. The only difference is the order of the cards can't change. That really doesn't matter when you're dealing with a human otter player, but it does matter for these ones. So we're going to Birdsong. First up, stock market. Now, I know we just made one step. This is the other of 2 factions I referenced in the Lizards episode that does not have their first step being draw an order card. We'll get to why in a second, but I just wanted to point that out. So, stock market. Draw cards and add them to the market's right side until it has 5. Second up, craft the first card added to the market that shows an available item for 1 victory point, and then discard it. Remember, when you're crafting, if you have a craftable item that's available, great, you get 1 victory point. If it's a crafted ability, it does not do anything because they don't really use those. And if it's something that doesn't have a crafted ability, like an ambush card, they also ignore that. They just use those cards for their suit and move on. Now, also, this is only a card that's added to the market. So if they already had an item in the market that still had an item to be crafted, they do not craft that one. That's important to note. And then last up, set order to be the rightmost market card. So this is important because if, say, the 5th card you're adding to the market was an item that was available and you crafted it, that was the rightmost, but you discarded it. So now the rightmost is whatever is next to that one. And also, you do not replace a card if you craft it in this way. So a 5 card hand just becomes 4 and everyone else has to deal with it. Next up is daylight. Build and garrison. Place a trade post and a warrior in an ordered clearing with no trade post. So off to the side, you'll notice the first column of the trade posts has no victory points associated with it. The middle has +1, the rightmost has +2. You'll also notice there are no rulings on here that trade posts that are removed from the board are removed from the game. So they go back, meaning that if you put 1 down from Fox, your next one from Fox will get you a victory point unless that Fox one gets removed and then it goes back on the board. And if you put a Fox one down again, it gets you no victory points. So a slight change from the human otter faction that's important. There are clearing ties underneath there. And as always, the final unwritten tie is priority. Second up, recruit. 1 warrior in each ordered clearing. If the order card is a bird card, instead recruit 1 warrior in each clearing on the river. And then not enough warriors to recruit for all the clearings. We have a tiebreaker there as well. Third up, organize. Check for protectionism. We're going to just hop over and talk about that because otherwise this makes no sense. So in the middle of the board, protectionism. In organize, check these 2 conditions. For shield, does payments have no warriors? You're seeing up above, warriors are placed in this box to pay for services. So if no payments, shield applies. Cross swords, does your supply have no warriors? If you meet a condition, you will resolve every action showing its icon for the rest of your turn. This is a really brilliant way of saving a bunch of text. So they go off to the side, they see if you fall into either or both of these categories, and then you follow the actions that have that symbol next to it for the rest of the turn. It's awesome, as long as you remember to do it right here. And also, that part I have no problem following. It's this next part of the 3rd step I often forget. Immediately upon checking that, score 1 victory point and place, shield or swords. So this is the first example. If either of those apply, colon, and then the effect is there. So if you have no payments and or no warriors, place 1 or score 1 victory point and place 2 warriors in a clearing that has Riverfolk pieces and the most enemy pieces. So right in the 3rd step, we get benefits if one of these applies. 4th up, battle. For shield, you're going to battle in each clearing. Skip the following cross swords line. So you'll never do both. For crossed swords, battle in each ordered clearing. So this seems a little bit odd to me at first because crossed swords, all the warriors on the map, you're like, let's do some damage. But shield is the one where the table has just said, hey, nobody buy from the otters. And they're just pissed off and they're just going to take out their anger on everybody. That's how I internalize it, like my headcanon. So if there's no payments, battles are just going to happen everywhere. If there are no warriors in supply, it's going to be more of a surgical strike just on order cards. Unless it's a bird card, in which case it's everywhere. Again, defender ties are right there, and the final unwritten tie for players is the setup order, if none of the other tiebreakers apply. Finally, evening. First up, you're going to score 1 victory point per warrior of the player with the most warriors in payments. Then remove those warriors from payments. So this is the way that warriors go back. So they will go into payments. They never actually spend warriors to do actions like the human otters, but at evening time, whoever has the most warriors, and it might be the Riverfolk robots, that gets tallied up, they get that many victory points, and they go back to that player's supply. Second, racketeering. If shield or cross swords. From each clearing, take all but 2 Riverfolk warriors and place them in payments. That's an important one because that's a major thing to look out for. And third, discard the leftmost card from the market. If shield, you're going to discard the leftmost card from market again. So I think in this case, you only refill your market at the beginning of your turn. So if players are like icing out the marketplace, then the Riverfolk robots are responding by saying, okay, I'll clear out extra cards, and then I will fill that up with more stuff. Maybe you'll be interested in that later, which again, is a really awesome way of doing it. Last up, services. Again, I'm not going to go over the specifics because the big long episode does that in quite a bit of detail, but I'm just going to remind you the amount you pay, the amount of warriors you pay is equal to, or rather based off of how many victory points you have. So 0 to 9, it's 2. 10 to 19, it's 3. And 20 plus, it's 4. So keep that in mind when you're playing to make sure players are paying this faction their fair share based on how well they're doing. And that's it. That's the Riverfolk robots. Again, a little bit longer than these other quick playing episodes, but definitely shorter than the accompanying Big Brother episode. If after this you're just like, woo, there is some detail I am missing, then I have got good news for you. I probably covered it in more detail than you want in the other episode. So it's linked down below. That's the one that was flagged earlier in the video as well. But I will continue to be putting out these quick play episodes in the near future. So until then, thanks for taking a pause with Give Pause. Happy gaming, and we'll see you next time.